Hey, Omni Dogs and Kittens. This is Omni Dogs Vault. Thanks for tuning in to Root Beer Reviews. Today I'm trying Virgil's root beer. Let's give it a sip and see how it is. Creamy and foamy. Little hint of licorice in there. I like it a lot. It's not sharp. It's very smooth. Virgil's. I dig it. So let's talk first why we like comic books. If you're tuning in, you must be a comic book fan. Because you can't be a fan of me because all I do is yap about comic books. You have to be a fan of comic books. Why do we like them? Because they're fun and exciting. They tell stories in a memorable way that makes an impact on our life. It's an art form that is different than every other art form. That when you read a good story, you put it down and you say, wow, that was an experience. It can be any kind of story, superhero story, autobiography, um, just a plain old story of everyday life, capes and tights, spies, danger, drama, crime. Anything can be a comic book. That's the beauty of it. Any subject can be a comic book. And it's fun and exciting to read them. You can read a book like Mouse and it makes an impact on you. You set it down and you just say, whoa, that was an experience. And so it kills me when I read a really crappy comic book. And I'm talking about this week Bramble from Humanoids. Humanoids, you should know better. We're supposed to be getting the best of European comics from you. That's my understanding. This thing is a wretched piece of dreck, dross, grot. It's no good. It bugged me. It's ostensibly about. Here's some of the artwork, which isn't too bad. The artwork's reasonably interesting. It's about a giant in a village that all of a sudden has a discovery that he wants to go to the city. And the earth is created by two brothers, I believe. One is into mechanization and the other's into nature. And they're always warring with each other. So villages and greenery get worried when cities encroach upon them. And this giant goes to the city and starts to cause mayhem. He looks like a gentle giant, but he like kills a dog and kills an old woman, just kills them. And then because he's trying to recreate nature in the city or something, I guess, uh, that's the plot. And then we've got a detective involved from whatever kind of mishmash futuristic society it is. Um, his wife is like cheating on him, and his son hates him, but we never know why. We have no reason to care about this guy. We understand that he's a beaten down guy, but we never see any reason why. And so it's hard to care about this guy. He's in a corrupt police force. He's uh, got a heart of gold, I guess, but then it turns out he is inside an agent of the village himself, and he gets recruited by a group to help make the turn the city into back to nature. And war goes on against these people who have uh, captured the mechanized god and held him in check. It was a mess. It was. I didn't care about any of the characters. I wasn't interested in the story. It's slapdash. It's just you could have fleshed out the detective and made me care about him. You could have fleshed out more about the giant and made me care about him. But he just looks like a wanton jerk, just going around killing people in the name of turning the earth back to greenery. This thing was a wreck. It was a mess. It was just not cohesive, not coherent. It was not well put together at all. And so I am inducting it into the Root Beer Hall of Shame, where, thanks to my friend Bon Idlehouse, who gave me the idea, I am going to induct it into the Hall of Shame. The worst root beer I had in the house, I apologize, it's warm Diet A&W from the garage. But this book is not even good enough to give away. This thing cost real money, but I'm inducting it into the Hall of Shame of root beer by pouring root beer all over it. I'm just so upset that I wasted my time on this book that it is now inducted into the Root Beer Hall of Shame. What a piece of junk. God. Now, let's talk about some good books. Some books, two books that you'll want to read. The first, Deadman, Dark Mansion of Forbidden Love. Now, Deadman's kind of a B-list DC character. I've always liked him ever since the beginning. You see my silver hair? I've been with him since the beginning, back in 1969, 68, whenever he was invented. First drawn by Carmine Infantino, then made famous by Neil Adams. Drawing him, excuse me, I got root beer going on in me. 1 second. Deadman, in this story, with beautiful art, is attracted to a haunted house and captured there where he cannot escape. And he finds a couple there, and he usually can possess people fairly easily. He can't possess this woman. She can tell that he's there. So he's in the Dark Mansion of Forbidden Love, which used to be a comic book that I actually read as a 12-year-old. And it's quite something to read this book, because not only is it a good story, it's got a good plot and it got a good story. You care about the characters, you care about where the story goes because it's fleshed out. You find out about the young woman involved in the story. She can see ghosts, she can see Deadman. You learn a little bit more about Deadman. You learn about the haunted mansion itself. And one thing that's very interesting is that it's the first book that I ever read that has reference to non-binary gender. I'm trying to find the part where it is, but Deadman asks, here it is. She says Sam would love this, and Deadman says, why'd you send her away then? And Berenice says, Sam uses they, them pronouns. They're non-binary, not a woman or a man, just awesome. That's pretty groundbreaking to feature a person like that, and this is what Sam looks like, right there with Berenice. That's pretty groundbreaking for DC to do. It's a small part of the story. It doesn't have a huge impact. It does at the end. Sam has an impact, but his, her, they, their non-binary status is just kind of an interesting side note to a book that otherwise is mostly kind of a romantic ghost story. But I kudos to DC for going there. It's written by Sarah Vaughn, so good for her. The art is by Lan Medina, so good for him, her, they, them, whoever it is. But the artwork is very nicely done. The story is really well done. Again, I say you care about the characters. You care about what happens to them. You're invested in it emotionally. So I highly recommend Deadman, Dark Mansion of Forbidden Love. That's a good book. That goes into the Root Beer Hall of Fame. Don't let any root beer touch this book. It's a good book. Then we have some of the best books I've ever read. And that would be these two, Ms. Marvel 1 and Ms. Marvel 2. Um, I'm kind of late to the party on this. I admit it. Ms. Marvel's been out for a while, but I trade weight stuff. And Ms. Marvel has fabulous art to start with by the artist last name Alfona, who I believe did The Runaways, I've been told, because I haven't read The Runaways yet. Let's see what Mr. Alfona's first name is. This is written by G. Willow Wilson, who is a converted Muslim. Adrian Alfona and Jacob Wyatt also drew in this book, and it's really, really good. Now, it's about a young Pakistani woman who happens to be a Muslim in Jersey City who gets the Terrigen mists. She gets affected by the Terrigen mists that affect the Inhumans, and it gives her powers. So she becomes an Inhuman. She can stretch herself, make herself bigger, make herself smaller, make herself thin. She has a healing factor. But as Giovanni Menendez of A Week in Geekdom says, Ms. Marvel is this generation's Peter Parker, which is true. She has to deal with high school and boys and her very traditional parents who are trying to keep their daughter under control. But how do you keep a kid that all of a sudden acquires superpowers under control? Um, and she loves her mom and dad and wants to do right by them, but she wants to use her powers to save the world or save her little piece of Jersey City anyway. And this is a character, it works very organically. You learn about uh, her brother is very much of a traditional Muslim. Her parents are a little bit more liberal. He's more conservative, and she's just trying to get along and still respect her parents. And they deal with some really interesting, inventive villains in it. But at no time do you ever lose interest in Kamala Khan. That's Ms. Marvel. You always are interested in her because it's so well written by G. Willow Wilson that you want to read more. I couldn't put this book down. I couldn't put. There's a third volume out which I haven't read yet, but I read volumes 1 and 2, and volume 2 ends on a cliffhanger that I believe is resolved in, I don't know, Secret Wars or something, but some other Marvel event. You have to go with it, and it is organically told, fully fleshed out. You're very invested in the character, and you want to know, how is she dealing with all these personal crises that a regular teenager does, who is all of a sudden imbued with superpowers. So she is this generation's Peter Parker, and it works beautifully. You want to learn more about her. You want to keep reading. You feel sympathetic for her, empathetic for her, because we've all been high schoolers. We all remember what it was like. We all remember the difficulty of being in high school. And she manages to pull it off with the help of friends. She's got some friends too. She manages to pull it off beautifully. A lot of teenage angst, which is great. And I cannot say enough good things about Ms. Marvel. So you guys owe it to yourselves to read volumes 1, 2, and 3. I'm assuming 3 is as good as volume 1 and 2. But you owe it to yourselves to read volumes 1 and 2 of Ms. Marvel. And she uses a Simpsons, this is her action figure. See, she can make herself with a fist, and she says embiggen, and if you to make herself big. And if you've ever watched The Simpsons, you know that embiggen is a word from The Simpsons, which cracks me up to no end. It's a perfectly cromulent word. Embiggen, and she gets bigger, and she can stretch and pound on people with her big fist. Look how good this figure looks. Hasbro does a good job with its legends. So that's the root beer review for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave your comments below, and I appreciate you're watching. Thank you.